everyone, welcome back to Thought Crime and Keto and Crime. Today we've got part 2 of QAnon. Before we get started, I'd like to thank all my wonderful patrons and channel members. Couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much. If you'd like to join them, those links are down below. You can also support the channel simply by buying some merch down below if you'd like. Always appreciated, never required. Or you can just simply subscribe, like, watch, comment, share. That's the most important thing any of you can do for the channel, and I really appreciate it. And I hope you're enjoying this. I had a lot of fun with this subject. But with that being said, let's jump into it.
That is a generalization. More specifically, what QAnon is a fringe movement in which many baseless conspiracy theories are discussed on the internet, organized around the idea of an anonymous but well-connected person or persons nicknamed Q.
Last time we kind of did a generalized overview of what QAnon is, i.e. a belief that there is a highly organized worldwide cabal of elites, media, politicians, celebrities that are running essentially a child labor ring, and they also drink blood, and they're Satanists. And that there is a storm coming, that is the day when all of this will fall and all these dirty people will be sent to Gitmo, to Guantanamo Bay, due to the interference and leadership of Donald J. Trump, who is known as Q+ in this movement. We also talked about where the term Q came from, and it refers to the highest level of government clearance. And then we also talked why Donald Trump is the messiah of this movement. And that had a lot to do with his uncle, John Trump's involvement with in the classification of Nikola Tesla's remaining plans and his work on highly classified government scientific projects for both the military and just the civilian government. So all of that ties into Donald Trump being in the know. And then you add in that he had the support of people like Steve Bannon, Alex Jones, as well as a generalized belief that there is a deep state going back to the earliest days of government, as well as things like 9/11 truther, anti-vax, the rise of autism. All this stuff is kind of culminating into making us easy to control. So that's essentially what QAnon is a belief that Donald J. Trump is going to stop all of this from happening, and we're going to keep our sovereignty. And I'm all for keeping our sovereignty. I don't quite buy this theory, though. And so that's what we got through last week, kind of a background, who, what, why. Well, today we're going to talk about the spread of QAnon, because it's not just a compartmentalized theory anymore. It's gone mainstream, and there's people all over the world involved in it that believe in it, or at least parts of it, and it's spreading like wildfire. So that's what we're going to talk about. Why in modern times has this just exploded? Let's get into it. We talked about 9/11 and how a lot of people believe that was planned by the U.S. government to enact things like the Patriot Act, which enable the National Security Agency, the CIA, other governmental agencies to spy on us and to watch us and to put us on watch lists and kind of spy on us. And this has been kind of compounded by the fact that technology companies and just the stuff that we do are tracking your every move. I mean, it's true. We are tracked. That's why when I look at a new pair of shoes online, I then go on Facebook, I'm getting ads for shoes. So it's just that kind of world where data is the new oil. Data is the new oil. And so everybody's looking for data. And so we are in a very heavily data influenced world. And that feeds right into the grains of truth that you see running through these theories. So let's go back with 9/11 and then the Patriot Act, and then how we learned that the government was surveilling us as much as they are. And let's talk about Edward Snowden, shall we? He was born in 1983. He's known most of all for being a whistleblower, that when he was a government contractor and a CIA employee contractor, that he basically copied tons of confidential information and released it to the public. And during that, and most of that information revolved around just how deeply and how broad the NSA's and CIA surveillance of a normal American citizen had gone. Basically, he was prosecuted by the United States government under the Espionage Act of 1917, but he fled to Russia, who granted him asylum, and he's, as far as I know, still a permanent resident of Russia. I don't know what he's telling them. I hope nothing, but I wouldn't assume that they would give him asylum unless he was feeding them some information. But anyway, so as you can imagine, he wasn't very well liked by the government, and that made him kind of a hero for the conspiracy theorists that really believed there was some sort of deep state. And then you can also factor into this Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks was basically a website that leaked news of all sorts. It was founded in 2006. Julian Assange was the founder, and he has been tied to many types of leaks, including most recently in 2016, the leaking of the Clinton emails. He is very directly tied to that. So again, this is feeding into that conspiracy theory that there is a deep state and they're hiding things from us, and these things kind of fueled that fire, which is another reason both Snowden and Julian Assange, I'm not going to get into more him because he turned out to be like a dirty P word. But yeah, those two blew up, and you even had the common normie talking about those. So that, again, fed in to this movement. And I bet you're like, well, Tracy, this just deals with hidden information. So I understand that it relates to the deep state, but where does all this sex cult stuff come from? Well, there's a couple of things that have kind of put into broad-based canon. Number one would be the Pizzagate scandal, which was basically kind of launched in 2016, particularly tied to, again, the contentious 2016 presidential election that alleged that Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, other huge, big elite, mainly Democratic politicians, were running a child labor ring out of Comet Ping Pong Pizza in Washington, D.C. And anytime these emails, which could also be tied back to the Julian Assange leaks, is that anytime they talked about Italian food, they were talking about kids, and they were holding them and breeding them in a basement of this pizzeria in Washington, D.C. This hit mainstream October 30th, 2016, when a tweet went live asserting that this was going on, and it was supposedly backed up by police. This was later picked up and distributed to several news sites with, scrupulous records of accuracy, such as your Newswire and the Conservative Daily Post, and especially the internet message board 4chan, that this was absolutely true and had been confirmed by the FBI. This all culminated in a gentleman showing up at the pizzeria armed, wanting to free the children. He was later arrested, and so Pizzagate. And all of this kind of got tied in to this deep state thread running through mainstream conspiracy theories. And QAnon is starting now to gain traction and get mainstream. But it was on the internet message board 4chan, which is worldwide famous for not only free speech, even though that has been more censored of late, also with being able to find the identities of people that remain to be hidden, anonymous activity on there. You get to conspiracy theories coming off the Anon boards and creating their own boards to basically put this into full rapid growth. But before we get into what actually happened on 4chan, I'm going to drop a clip I had done in relation to another video I did that included 4chan and later on 8chan. I'm going to put here so you can really understand what 4chan is. I'm going to drop that right here. 4chan was a website that initially functioned as an old school message board. Remember, like AOL, the very beginnings of the internet, how you would find message boards? Well, this is exactly what 4chan was. It wasn't a website or a social media platform per se. It was a message board that actually functioned more as an image board, which meant every post had to start with an image. Now, it was launched in 2003 by Christopher Poole, who was on the website under the moniker Moot. And it was unique in that it was completely and utterly anonymous. You know, when you sign onto a website, it asks you to register. You wouldn't find that here because it was absolutely and completely anonymous. And there were a variety of different message boards that Christopher Poole and his moderators decided what topics or what person got there on board. So it's not like you could just create your own board and start a message. You could post on someone else's board as a reply, and if the post got really popular, that topic, not necessarily you, but that topic might get its own board, and that was completely at the discretion of the owners of the website. And as I said, it was initially started as a way for geeks and gamers to communicate with each other. There was anime, there was manga, video games, music, literature, fitness, politics, sports, anything you could determine led the board. And as a result, it got very, very popular. By June of 2020, the site boasts over 22 million unique monthly visitors, not identified by their, personally identifying information, but just by IP addresses and other things. Now, you do have people that use VPNs, which I highly suggest that you do, especially if you use a lot of public internet. I do when I'm out and about traveling for comedy. So, not sponsored by NordVPN yet. Maybe one day. But basically, as the posts went up, depending on their popularity, if you got a lot of upvotes or a lot of action on your particular post, it would get moved further up that particular board. If you posted in an anime message board and your picture got a lot of traction, got a lot of response, got a lot of upvotes, it would move up that board and become the top post at the board and remain there as long as it was popular. Anything that wasn't popular would be removed after a few hours, so it was constantly in and out. And as you can imagine, because this website boasted itself as ultimate free speech, no censorship, say what you want to, it started attracting, as I said before, you crazies. October 2017, 4chan, on one of the anonymous message boards, supposedly ran by the anonymous hacker group, supposedly, a post by a man calling himself Q stated that the entire U.S. government was involved in this deep state conspiracy theory. That's why they wanted Donald Trump to not be elected, because he was going to bring in this storm that would topple this cabal. It outlines pretty much everything that holds up within the theory. It brings in the cabal, the child labor, the satanic rituals, the deep state, the thing that nothing in history was ever random. It was all planned, and it just kind of puts it together in a neat little post. And as you saw in my clip about 4chan, the more popular a post is, the closer it gets to the top of the board, and this took off. And so you had everyone talking about it, and it started to make its ways through 4chan, and then later on the other alternative message board, 8chan, which was a non-moderated and very free speech centric. So you had all of this stuff, and it was signed by Q Clearance Patriot, who said he had the Q clearance, high-level clearance, and that he knew all of this stuff was going down through personal experience. And so that's kind of how this all came together into one big theory, and QAnon was born because he kept, whoever this was, it could have been more than one person, he or she, they kept coming back to this board and posting more and more on this theory and started talking to the people on the board, calling them Anons. So you had QAnon, and thus it was born. And these boards are widely used worldwide, so more and more people, especially in other countries, are starting to get in on this, and the movement was born. But who is this mysterious Q? Who is 𝗂𝗫𝗁𝗁? Truth is, no one really knows. As I said, I'd mentioned my good friend JB Gunner. He said he's doing a video on who is Q. JB's not for everybody. He is uncensored, so if profanity isn't your thing, you know, go elsewhere. But I am not going to pretend to say that I know who Q is, but I will tell you some of the theories about who Q is. Basically, several names have been put out there, from Donald Trump himself to Michael Flynn to Dan Scavino, a White House aide, to one of the most famous theories as propagated on both 4chan and 8chan is that it's JFK Jr. Remember, died in a plane crash, that was actually faked, and now he is actually 𝗂𝗫𝗁𝗁𝗁. So there's a lot of different theories. I know there's also theories that it's a foreign troll just agging us on because sheeple, and I'm more aligned with that theory, that it's just somebody messing with us, for lack of a better term, and just creating more and more division, because one major way you cause, you know, a country to get weak is dividing it, and they're doing a great job of that. So, yeah, that's my theory. So, how did the QAnon theory leap off these obscure, not quite obscure, internet message boards into mainstream? Several ways. First of all, let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein. In 2019, financier Jeffrey Epstein, we all know what happened to him and Giselle Maxwell. They were busted for basically running a underage minor for hire, the kindest way I can think to say it, ring, and a lot of it proved to be true. Jeffrey Epstein had huge ties to very elite people, including the Trumps, including the Clintons, including members of the royal family in England. So now you have all these elite people that are highly placed. They have a lot of influence now linked to a legitimate naughty ring. So that helped proliferate. As people were basically researching what happened, you know, they find themselves, you know, you put in something in Google, it's going to take you places. So you basically find people researching this stuff, and then they stumble upon these message boards, and then people started reading these Anon message boards and tying it all together, and then you have more and more people starting to catch wind of this, and it keeps growing and growing and growing. But the real explosion came when it went to Reddit. Supposedly different Twitter accounts, some run by actual people, some run by trolls, bots, however you want to say that, started picking up these news stories, broadcasting them all over, and then two 4chan posters, Paul Ferber and Coleman Rogers, and a YouTuber by the name of Tracy Diaz, who were huge believers in the theory, started subreddits on the social media site Reddit, which is extremely popular, and started posting the theories there. And I literally know people who spend hours a day on Reddit. It's a very entertaining site. You can find boards that will pique your interest in a wide variety of subjects, and conspiracy theories are there. And so these boards became very popular. And from there, it just kind of flustered. And then you had more and more people getting on the Trump train, for lack of a better term, and then the rumor that anybody associated with Trump was in part a member of QAnon. And then you had people getting more emboldened, actual pages dedicated to this conspiracy theory. The motto you've seen at some of the QAnon people that are very blatantly at political rallies. You see the term WWG1WGA, where we go one, we go all. That became kind of a battle cry. You saw the person, like the person in my thumbnail, holding it up, we are Q. And as a result, you have now have a worldwide movement. This has brought in lots of different political demonstrations all over the world. The Yellow Vests in France that protested against unfair taxes, they are tied to the QAnon movement. You had some of the German unrest tied to QAnon. So there are facets of it in anywhere there's political unrest or disagreement with the existing government, you have QAnon. And it really all culminated in the 2020 election. I think we know that. The unrest and division in this last election was unfounded. There have been widely claimed theories that the election was dishonest. I don't know about any of that. I hope not. I hope not. I hope that our government is strong enough to withstand this. But with those theories melding into this about how this cabal is coming together to stop Donald J. Trump, it has just exploded, and it all kind of culminated in Washington, D.C., January 6th of this year. I think we all know what happened. People stormed the White House, and yes, there's all kinds of theories that there were leftists there, and I'm sure there were. I'm sure there were anarchists there. I'm sure there was Antifas there. I'm sure there was BLM there, because lots of people, no matter what their political stance are, have grievances with the government and don't trust it. So it's very likely that there were people there. But there were also definitely QAnon people there. QAnon people were very plainly sporting their Qs, sporting their symbols, are the ones that stormed the actual Capitol. The young lady that was killed, tragically killed, unknowingly, unwittingly, unnecessarily killed, was a outspoken member of QAnon or believer in QAnon. So it happened, and now we are facing a social media purge. And as somebody that is very into free speech and knows the value of free speech and the dangers of any kind of censorship, it makes me sad to see this go. But on the other hand, these are private companies that have every right to censor who they want on their platforms. But then again, you have to think, when does a private company stop being a luxury and it's more of a right? You could say the same thing about the early days of utility companies. You know, electricity used to be, telephones used to be a luxury. Then they became necessities. So I would say a lot of these social media platforms are now necessities. So we really need to look at what censorship is and what censorship isn't. But again, not trying to get political. I'm just saying, as somebody that loves free speech, it's breaking my heart to see it. Because they're not only purging QAnon boards, they're getting people that are quite innocent and just have different, conservative leaning or moderate leaning or even, Antifa, BLM leaning are getting censored. It's just, no matter what side you're on, the open discussion of ideas is so vital to a society, and that's all I'm going to say. And yeah, I know any group that is promoting violence should be removed, absolutely. It's just the people that are just kind of caught up innocently in it that I feel bad for. And let's talk about how they're continuing to recruit members. Because they believe in this cabal that's preying on children, you see lots of them out recruiting people with Save the Children signs, things that any normal person in society would be attracted to. They can easily suck them in with the whole Save the Children thing. So they're out there, and they're not just conservatives. There are anarchists in this group, which are by definition leftists. There are Antifa types in this movement. There are BLM supporters in this movement. And the only reason I'm using these terms is because they are all associated with either being left or right. There are also moderates. They have moderate political views that are associated with this movement because they actually believe that there's a huge worldwide cabal out there. So this is a movement that literally transcends political political mindsets. And the deeper you get into something, the more radicalized you tend to be. So this is a dangerous movement. It is a dangerous movement. And I understand why the violence needs to be censored along those lines. So, y'all, for good, better, or worse, that's QAnon. At least that's what I was able to find out about QAnon. And I found it very entertaining. It's just amazing to me to see ideas go from something with a grain of truth just whoosh, out there. And so I'll be anxiously watching what's going to happen on Wednesday, Inauguration Day. Supposedly, these groups are talking about some final storm that's going to happen on Inauguration Day. I really hope that's just talk. I don't want any more violence. I'm so sick of it. From the cities burning this summer to what happened at the Capitol, I'm over the violence, and I hope everyone else is. I just want this country to come back together and work together. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I hope it does. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this. I'll be back real soon with another video. And until then, keto and crime.